Well, welcome to Christ and Culture. This is Pastor Jeff Short. Glad to have you along for our discussion every week where we take a topic, a news item, an issue from contemporary culture, and we analyze it from a Christian perspective, and we want to get to the bottom of these things. We want to think through these issues from a Christian perspective. We don't want to be tossed about by every wind or doctrine or influencer or news report. We want to think through these issues from a Christian perspective. And one of the things that we need to think through is now that the Supreme Court has reversed Roe v. Wade, now that abortion is not the mandate in every state, now that each state is free to make its own laws regarding abortion, many states are now regulating abortion and actually outlawing abortion, praise the Lord. So that's a good positive step. But there is a controversy within the pro-life community and among Christians as to what should be done to women who, in defiance of their state law, in rebellion to the law of God, most importantly, they want to go ahead and have an abortion anyway. What should be done to women in that instance, because they're actually breaking the criminal law of the state? Does that make them criminals, and should they be punished? Well, believe it or not, there are people in the pro-life community, I would say probably the mainstream pro-life community, who are trying to say that no women should ever be punished in any way for having an abortion, and that it's always 100% the fault of the abortion clinic and the abortionists who actually perform the abortion. And so they're trying to tell people, no, we don't want any kind of criminalization of abortion as far as the mother is concerned. She's an innocent victim of this, just as the baby is an innocent victim. The only people that should be punished are those who aid and abet the abortion clinic and the abortionist. And as you can see, as you can probably apparently conclude on your own, this doesn't seem to make any sense, but that's exactly what a lot of the pro-life mainstream organizations are arguing, and as well as some Christians within the evangelical community are arguing the same. Well, does that make any sense, though? I can understand why you would maybe make that argument before Roe v. Wade is overturned, because you want to put the cart before the horse. You want to make sure that you're not building up any artificial barriers that would prevent the Supreme Court justices from reversing Roe v. Wade. So you want to minimize the fallout of some kind of a reversal of Roe v. Wade. I can understand that. But now that we're past Roe v. Wade, we're post Roe v. Wade, praise God, and that terrible, awful Supreme Court decision of 1973 is over, and it's been overruled and overturned, now we can begin to actually talk sanely and rationally about this topic, and especially about the criminal penalties that should be meted out about concerning abortion and those who perform abortion, those who arrange abortion, and anyone connected with this, because this is murder. This is murdering the child in the womb. This is a serious matter, so we should treat it in a serious manner. Well, I'm going to look today at a podcast by John Harris, and he has a podcast called Conversations That Matter on the Internet, and he was looking into this subject in respect to the Southern Baptist Convention. They had a convention out there in Los Angeles, I believe it was, California, where they discussed this very issue with the current president at that time. And then they also gave the floor to the new president of the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, ERLC Commission, the subcommittee of the Southern Baptist Convention. And there is a delegate on the floor that asked them, why are you supporting the non-criminalization of abortion in respect to the mothers who go in for abortions? It doesn't seem to make any sense. And so we're going to look at this from a Christian perspective, from a biblical perspective, and try to make sense of this. And this is sort of, you might say, an in-house debate between Christians, but it also has larger ramifications in the culture at large, because if you have enough Christians and enough pro-life people arguing against criminalization of abortion, then you can actually sway the entire population of a state to go that direction. But the question would be why? Why would pro-life people who are against abortion and pro-life Christians who are against abortion, why would they be arguing that you shouldn't criminalize or penalize women who go in for abortion? It seems like a glaring inconsistency to take that position. But let's get into this. And what I'd like to do is show a video clip of this podcast by John Harris, who put together a really good presentation of this. And we want to look at the debate that was going on at the Southern Baptist Convention. And so let's bring that video clip up and see if we can make sense of it. Okay, there is the video clip, and we're going to jump into it. And then I'm going to jump into it and make commentary at certain points. So let's roll that clip.
My name is Brian Gunter. I am a messenger and the senior pastor of First Baptist Church in Livingston, Louisiana. Earlier this year, I worked with my state legislators to introduce House Bill 813 in the Louisiana legislature. HB 813 was a bill that sought to immediately end all abortion in my state by providing equal protection to the child in the womb. Simply stated, if life begins at conception, then our laws should protect life from the moment of conception. So you can imagine my surprise when you signed a letter dated May 12th urging all state lawmakers across America to oppose this bill and others like it, because it would make it a crime for a woman to kill her own child by abortion.
Okay, so that is a good question that this delegate at the Southern Baptist Convention is raising. Why would the Southern Baptist Convention, the ERLC, the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, an arm of the Southern Baptist Convention, why would they be supporting a bill that decriminalizes any kind of liability for the sin of abortion? Why would they be urging decriminalization of abortion and no penalties imposed on a woman who seeks an abortion? Why would the Southern Baptist Convention, who are overwhelmingly pro-life, they really believe in the sanctity of human life and the image of God in every single person at every stage of life, including the unborn, why would they then turn around and say, but we don't want any kind of penalties or punishment for women who defy the abortion laws in these states? For example, Oklahoma right now, praise the Lord, has a total ban on abortion. Thank God. I mean, I have prayed for years and years, even decades, for the time when abortion would be outlawed in the United States. And if not outlawed in the United States, at least outlawed in certain states. At least someplace in the U.S., abortion would be outlawed. And I've been praying that for decades and decades. And I first became aware of the issue of abortion when I was a undergraduate student at Wheaton College in Illinois. I looked at the issues and I said, this is terrible that we allow in the United States people to basically, essentially kill their children. And this should not be this way. And so I fought against it, and I've been fighting against it every year since then that I became aware of this issue in my early 20s. But I never had to think about the issue of, well, what would happen if there was a time after Roe v. Wade is reversed and states began to ban abortion because they didn't want the killing of unborn children in their state, what would happen if a woman, against God's will and against the will of the state, went ahead and had an abortion? What would happen to her? I never had to really think about that, but having not thought about it much, my most natural reaction, and I think most people's reaction would be, well, if someone defies the state, has a criminal intent to commit murder, and then facilitates the committing of murder, yeah, there's some penalty that goes along with that. There's some punishment that goes along with that, because you can't have people just breaking the law willy-nilly whenever they want to and then get excluded from any kind of justice. But no, believe it or not, if you look into this, the major pro-life groups and organizations who were really largely responsible for reversing Roe v. Wade, they're opposed to criminal penalties for abortion in respect to women, which is so strange, which is so odd. I really don't understand that. So maybe we'll get a chance to hear why the Southern Baptist Convention took this very unusual stand, and why did they do it, and what's wrong with it. So let's go on with the video.
I thought that Southern Baptists, when we say we're pro-life, we mean that no person should be able to murder an innocent child in the womb. So this is my question.
Yes, and doesn't that seem logical, that if you're pro-life, no person should be able to either kill a child in the womb or facilitate the killing of a child in the womb? So you're assessing guilt, you're assessing blame. You're talking about how do you punish wrongdoing. And it seems logical that, yeah, there's some kind of penalties for a woman who goes ahead and tries to get an abortion and does get an abortion. Even if she were to attempt to get an abortion, we have laws on the books for attempted murder. So even if it doesn't actually take place, if she tried to facilitate an abortion, there should be criminal penalties. But the Southern Baptist Convention, with the ERLC, the Ethics Religious Liberty Commission, seem to say no. So what is this, and what's going on?
Is it really your position that the mother who willfully kills her own child by abortion is never guilty before God, and she should never face any consequences under the law?
That is an excellent question. I mean, this pastor and pro-life advocate has asked a super question. This totally makes sense, and it baffles the imagination that pro-life groups and the Southern Baptist Convention would defend the mother who tried to kill her child or who did kill her child with an abortion. And they want to say that she can do anything she wants and get away with it. That's the question. And here, let's see what the official Southern Baptist position is.
Here's the deal. We agree on the bottom line. We want abortion ended. We want it ended today. We want it ended tomorrow. We want to end it as soon as humanly possible. But while we hold fast to that goal and continually shout, that is what we want, why not support legislation that promises to save one more life in any context? I will say this,
Well, obviously, all pro-life people are against abortion and want it stopped and want babies saved. They don't want the continuation of abortion in any state or the entire country. We want to end it all. So that's not saying much. We all agree that we want abortion ended. The topic, though, is what about the woman who, against the law, wants to go ahead and have an abortion anyway and defy the will of God and defy the will of these pro-life states. That's the topic.
Get the record straight. No letter was sent directly to Louisiana about a Louisiana piece of legislation. Right after the draft opinion from the Supreme Court was leaked, National Right to Life approached us, as well as 75 other pro-life organizations from around the country, to say, hey, this would make sense, since functionally, if this were to be law, or this were to be the final decision, abortion will be returned to the states. It would seem to make sense that we send a letter to legislative leaders in all 50 states to let them know what the principles of the pro-life movement are. And so in a state like California, for example, where we are, it makes sense to send that because they're going to have this issue right in front of them. And in a state like California, they're going to have to take any available win where they can. Here's the reality.
So what he was saying, if I can interpret him under a lot of words that he just spoke, what I think he's trying to say is this letter was sent around to 50 states for political purposes, to try to soften the blow, to try to make it easier for people to accept that Roe v. Wade is about to be overturned. So that what? There wouldn't be riots in the streets and there wouldn't be mass demonstrations. So for political purposes, to make it easier for secular pagan people, especially those who are pro-abortion, these pro-life groups sent a letter around with the endorsement of the Southern Baptist Convention saying, well, we're not talking about prosecuting women who have had abortions. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense that you're not wanting to retroactively go back and prosecute women who have had abortions once Roe v. Wade is overturned and certain states decide to criminalize abortion. It would make sense to assure people, hey, we're not interested in looking back and looking at women who have had abortions over the years and trying to find out who they are and criminalize and penalize them and punish them for their act of murder, which it actually is. That makes sense, because how can you criminalize and punish someone for some crime that wasn't a crime at the time they did it? So it is a crime in the eyes of God. There's no question about that. Going in as a mother to an abortion clinic and having your child killed, deliberately killed in the womb, is a terrible moral crime before God. But unfortunately, it wasn't in the United States because of that terrible, awful ruling by the Supreme Court in 1973, the Roe v. Wade decision. So you can't go back retroactively and punish these women for something that wasn't a crime at the time they did it. They will have to answer to God for their sins. He will have jurisdiction and punish them if they don't confess and repent and turn to him for forgiveness. He will deal with them, not in this life necessarily, but in the next life. But the issue is, what about the laws that are being changed to reflect a pro-life state like Oklahoma? If the law of the land then in your jurisdiction where you live is pro-life, and you persist and stubbornly seek out an abortion, illegal abortion in your state, it seems to me you should be punished, because now it's not a matter of when you had the abortion, it was legal, but now that it's illegal in states, say like Oklahoma, and if you still have an abortion in that state, you should be liable for punishment and fines and some kind of penalty. It only makes sense. So if you're trying to say, well, we don't want to punish women not only for past crimes, we don't want to punish them now, even for crimes, breaking the law. That is a state of lawlessness, and I don't see how he can argue for eliminating all criminal punishments in states that ban abortion. You're just opening up a can of worms of lawlessness, because that's what it is.
You're not going to get me to say that I want to throw mothers behind bars.
Okay, that makes no sense. That makes no sense. I've heard this before. I think I heard it from other Christian leaders who are asked about this question, and they say, well, you're not going to get me to want to say that I want to throw mothers behind bars. Whoa, wait. So a mother has some kind of exemption from the law? What if a mother decides to kill her 1-year-old child? And you're going to stand up there and say, well, you're not going to get me to say that I want mothers behind bars. Well, you wouldn't if she wanted to kill her 1-year-old child? What about if she wanted to kill her teenage child, teenage son or daughter? Would you still say, I won't say or want anything to do with mothers going behind bars? It doesn't matter if they're a mother or a father or a sister or a brother or whoever it is. If they facilitate or commit murder, whether it's in the womb or outside of the womb, if they do that, they should pay the penalty for the crime. Let the punishment fit the crime. And this whole idea that you exempt mothers, yeah, we all love mothers. And this whole idea that he's trying to put forth here is based on, I think, more sentimentality. He's trying to appeal to people's sympathy and say, well, we wouldn't want to ever put a mother behind bars and put her in jail or put her in prison. Well, there are all kinds of crimes that mothers couldn't commit and do commit. And there are mothers in federal prison and jail right now for them. So why would we carve out an exception for murdering an unborn child? It doesn't make any sense. It's simply a political mechanism to try to, I guess, appease pro-abortion people and to make them not as mad. They're already mad that Roe v. Wade was reversed. So this appeasement approach, this is a political ploy, but it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense practically, and it doesn't make any sense theologically or spiritually or biblically. It makes no sense.
That's not the view of this entity. That is not the view of this convention. It is not the view of the pro-life movement.
The pro-life movement is inconsistent on this issue. Now, there is room for discussion as to what the criminal penalty should be for a woman who defies her state law and goes ahead and commits an abortion. Okay, we could talk about what should the penalty be. What kind of murder charge should she be charged with? And then what should be the criminal penalty? What should be the sentence? Should it be a fine? Should it be jail time? Should it be probation? It has to be something, because if you say that mothers are an exception to criminal law and that we wouldn't feel right if women were in jail who are there as mothers, then you're basing your law on emotions and sentimentality rather than justice. Where's the justice in this? And this man is trying to speak for all of the Southern Baptist Convention. I don't think he is. He is speaking for a small percentage, I believe. Because if you really break this down and you think about it, if you exempt women from criminal penalties for crimes they've done, then you are spreading lawlessness and injustice in the world, not justice. And that should be something Christians never do.
That was proven yet again today. I believe the same principles that Jesus used in John 4 and John 8 apply right here. Maybe instead of rushing in like a mob, we instead rush in with the truth given to us by the author of life, showing we are able to bear the burdens of others and offer the healing that comes with grace.
Well, yes, grace is there, and God forgives the women who commit these crimes, and Christians should forgive the women who commit the crime of abortion. Yes, and that's what pro-life Christians have always done. And that's what pro-life Christians will continue to do. But that's a separate issue from someone who breaks not only the law of God, but the law of the state in, for example, a state like Oklahoma, where abortions are illegal. And it seems to me totally inconsistent and illogical and contradictory and actually very stupid and foolish to say a woman cannot be charged with murder in the case of abortion. Only the abortion clinic and abortionists can be charged. No, it makes no sense. We already have legal precedent for charging accessory for murder. If you hire a hitman to kill someone because you don't like that person, it isn't just the hitman who is committing a crime. You are committing a crime. It's conspiracy to commit murder. And so there has to be some kind of penalty, or else you're basically telling women you can do whatever you want to do. And as Christians, we agree with that. You can do whatever you want to do. No, nobody can do whatever they want to do. And yeah, we don't want women in prison. And I hate to even think that women are in prison. And especially, I hate to think that there are mothers in prison. But if a mother commits a crime, she should do the time, as the rhyme says. This makes no sense what this man is saying.
Just as has been poured out for us.
So he brings up John 4, which would...
And here is John Harrison, and it's his podcast, and he's going to explain why it makes no sense at all, to use the words of Jesus to try to justify women committing abortion. So we have to give him credit for bringing this out and explaining it. John Harris, in his podcast, I would highly recommend his Conversations That Matter. That's his podcast. And he deals with a lot of issues that are in the evangelical world, especially related to Southern Baptist Convention. But it's just, it doesn't make any sense. And I remember when I first began to think about this issue, I remember back in 2016 when Donald Trump was running for president against Hillary Clinton running for president, and the issue of abortion came up. And one of the news reporters in the debate asked Donald Trump, well, what should happen to women who commit abortions if Roe v. Wade is overturned and a state criminalizes abortion? And he said, well, there would have to be some kind of penalties or punishments for the women who defy the law of the land and go ahead and commit the abortion. And people criticized him heavily. Well, Donald Trump is not a theologian. He's not a philosopher. He's not a legal scholar. But even he, having not thought about that issue, I'm sure, very much, just a common sense reaction would be, well, of course, there would have to be some punishment, some criminal penalties for this, because you can't have a woman, in this case a mother, committing a crime and then getting off scot-free. Our legal system doesn't want to encourage that, because that's a state of lawlessness. So I think Christians need to really think through this and to not be taken in by emotionalism and sentimentality over the whole issue of abortion in respect to a mother. If a mother goes to have an abortion and has an abortion, she is guilty, not only before God, but before the law of the land. Well, I hope this has been a helpful conversation, a lot to think about. We'll see you back next week. God bless.